Hello everyone. It's been a few weeks since I uploaded a teaching as I've been on vacation. So if you are a returning viewer, thank you for your support. Every view, every subscription, and every video that gets shared helps bring the teaching of sound Christian doctrine and instruction to more people. So I thank you for your contribution. While I was on holiday and doing a 3-week motorcycle tour of New Zealand, my wife and I had the privilege of staying with friends for a few days in central Otago. This is in the South Island of New Zealand. You know, we had such a great time, and it was a real blessing to spend time with people who wholeheartedly love Jesus and make such an effort to share God's love by blessing others. This experience absolutely emphasized the importance of fellowship with other Christians to me on a very deep and personal level. And I'm extremely grateful to the time we spent with these friends. So, thank you very much. You know who you are. Now, moving along, I've had a lot of time to consider this video's topic. And that brings us to today's conversation and a couple of questions that the church in Thessalonica were struggling with. You see, the scene of 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 begins in a type of chaos, or perhaps referring to the situation as being in disarray would be more fitting. You see, the Thessalonian church was small and it was battered, and it was also under pressure. It was clinging to Christ in a culture that was growing more hostile by the day. Now, I wonder if this might feel familiar to you. The Thessalonian church had believed the gospel, they had turned away from idols, and they had waited for Jesus to descend from heaven. But persecution had come fast and it came hard, and even families were being torn apart. Business owners were boycotted, and some of these Christians were even imprisoned or killed. And through all of this, there were questions that kept gnawing at their hearts, which was, had they missed it? Was the tribulation already happening? Had they been left behind? Had they missed the rapture? So the Apostle Paul writes to them from Athens to settle their fears and to shift their focus. Basically, what he says to them is, brothers and sisters, you haven't missed anything. In fact, what you are going through is evidence of not being abandoned, but of being counted worthy for the kingdom of God for which you are suffering. Now, that's the turning point in the story, because Paul is not going to give them a pep talk. He's not sugarcoating reality. He's lifting their eyes beyond the fire, beyond the fear, to glory. And this is where it touches us, because we live in a world where faith is increasingly costly. You might not face mobs or prison, but maybe your faith has made you a target. Maybe your friends think you're a fool. Maybe your career or relationships suffer because you refuse to compromise. And like the Thessalonians, you start wondering, is it worth it? Paul answers not by pointing them inward, but by pointing them upward. He says, one day Jesus will be revealed from heaven with blazing fire and mighty angels, not hidden, not subtle, but unveiled in glory. This is not the rapture Paul spoke of earlier in 1 Thessalonians. This is the second coming, the revelation of Jesus Christ to the whole world. And on that day, there will be no confusion, and justice will no longer be delayed. Those who afflicted God's people will face affliction from God himself. As Paul puts it in verse 6, God is just. He will pay back trouble to those who trouble you. That echoes his warning in 1 Thessalonians 4 verse 6. God is the avenger, not us. And the judgment Well, it's not a slap on the wrist. Paul says Jesus will deal in flaming fire, taking vengeance on those who do not know God and do not obey the gospel. Now, in case you were wondering, this is not overly harsh. This is holy. This is the righteous judge returning, not to negotiate, but to reign. Some protest may even protest, saying that's unfair. And you might even ask, what if they didn't know? Well, Paul has already addressed that because no one is without excuse. You see, Romans 1 verse 20 tells us that God has made himself known through his creation so that people are without excuse. The issue is not a lack of information, but rejection of revelation. And the chilling words of Jesus come to mind in Matthew 25, verse 41, when Jesus says, "Depart from me." Or Luke 13:27, when he declared, "I never knew you." The line in the sand is drawn by relationship. So the question is, do you know him? But what about the faithful, you might ask? Well, here's the encouragement. Paul says, to you who are troubled, rest. Not escape, not avoidance, but rest with us. The believer finds peace in truth, and that's why doctrine matters. It anchors us in stormy seas. It helps us stand when others fall. Paul then prays for 5 things, that God would count them worthy of his calling, not in the sense of salvation, for no one is worthy of salvation through good works, but in how they walk out their calling in this life. That God would fulfill every purpose of goodness through them, that every act prompted by their faith would be completed, that Jesus' name would be glorified in them, and that they would be glorified in him, according to the grace of God. Now, the next question is, did you catch the theme? Because this isn't about self-help or earning God's favor. It's about grace. It's about God being glorified through us. Every blessing, every trial, every moment we endure faithfully becomes an opportunity to glorify God. Glorify God, whether it is in our worship, our witness, the wounds we suffer, or even through hospitality and generosity, like that which was shown to us, my wife and I, on our vacation. Paul's message isn't look how strong you are. It's look how faithful God is. But that's the kind of faith that grows exceedingly and the kind of charity that abounds, not because of how great we are, but because of how great he is. So let me ask you, when Jesus is revealed from heaven in blazing fire, will you be counted worthy? Not to earn heaven, because no one can earn heaven, but worthy to reign with him in his kingdom. Because you stood firm, because you knew God, because in your trials you kept faith. Not to glorify yourself, but to glorify Christ. That's the call of 2 Thessalonians chapter 1. It's not a call to comfort. It's not even a call to survival, but a call to glorify God with your life until the day he returns. Now, I realize that the end times and eschatology can be confusing. So if you have any questions, please put them down below in the comments, and I will do my best to provide you with a clear Bible-based answer. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time for chapter 2.